This episode is brought to you by the Founders Club, the premier community for founders pursuing excellence in the mind, body, and of course, business. The club is home to over 750 founders who are actively building stronger companies and better lives together. Through curated masterminds, destination retreats, and private events, members gain access to world-class insights, connections, and experiences designed to help them perform at the highest level. So the average founder in the club is doing between $5 and $50 million a year in revenue. So if you're ready to surround yourself with like-minded entrepreneurs who push you to grow and excel in every area of life, visit foundersclubofficial.com and apply to become a member today. Welcome back to another episode. Today, we have a very special guest. Not only a member, if you're watching this, he's all merged out, just like me, but also a good friend and an incredible entrepreneur, a purebred entrepreneur. People that, someone that just like, every time you speak to him, it's just nonstop, like what is going on in his head. There's so much opportunity. There's so much business. You see things so clearly. So I think for a lot of people that are going to listen to this today, hearing about your story is going to be very powerful, but most importantly, the golden nuggets, the information, the experience that you're going to be able to share with the audience is going to be more than valuable. So I'm really excited to get into it. So let's get into it. Richart, whatever we want. Two parts of the name, two different nicknames. Welcome to the podcast, dude.
Man.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, man. Good to be here.
So, my favorite thing to do in the beginning of every one of our podcasts is to dissect the entrepreneur a little bit. And what that means is, today you're sitting here, multiple businesses, multiple exits, working on a new business. You see the opportunity. We'll get into all of that. But that doesn't just come. People don't wake up one morning and say, okay, you know what? I'm just going to quickly rip a couple exits, do a couple different businesses and make it happen. There's always something that happens, a lesson we learn in our youth that really starts to build the foundation, the building blocks of entrepreneurship. So where I'd love to start is, where did entrepreneurship start for you? And like at what age and what did that look like?
Yeah, I think it's just naturally in my DNA. So growing up, my mom would always, and my dad ran, he had a clothing store in Baltimore at one point. He did that. Then we owned a chain of small pharmacies and convenience stores in Baltimore. And my mom was always instilling, my dad passed when I was young, but my mom was always instilling these stories of like entrepreneurship and things like that in me. And I think it just kind of came naturally. It was in my blood. And even going to back, and I started working at a young age in middle school. I was thinking about this earlier. I was literally punching calling cards out across the street from my middle school in Baltimore, and was earning like $4.50 an hour or something like that.
I know what a calling card is. My mom had to use them, but for those of us who don't know, tell us about the calling card.
Which is probably a good part of the audience these days. But calling cards used to be when you would travel and you would buy minutes so you could go to a payphone and you call a number, and then it would let you connect to another number. And even when I was young, it was already kind of on its way out, but internationally it was still big. And I assume today the calling card market's got to be it's
got to be dead. I can FaceTime anyone now.
Yeah.
You couldn't call anyone pretty much like outside of your jurisdiction really without one.
Yeah. So, and that was like, and I saw that as a means to work to then build a little bit of money to buy goods and things that I wanted at a young age. And nobody's harder on me than myself. So I'm always wanting better and always wanting to promote and get to the next level and stage. And it feels that way now, but just with entrepreneurship and business. So back then, I went from a calling card job at $4.50 to working at an Italian ice shop for $6.50. And then I was like, all right, what's the best restaurant in town? I can make tips there and make more money there. And then I worked at a hedge fund out of college. Then I've been building different businesses. And then as I've been able to grow it, and if I feel like it's been maxed out, I'm like, all right, what can I do next? What's a bigger opportunity? And that's kind of where I've gotten to today. And if I'm screwing something up, or I'm always saying to myself, like, how can I do better? And because I'm so hard on myself, that's my motivation to always be doing better and always just improving and then trying to stride and hit bigger goals. And I've had people say, oh, you've done all these amazing things. I'm like, that's great. Like, but I don't feel that way. Like, no matter how good you do, even if you're like Steve Cohen, one of the most successful hedge fund managers in the world, worth billions of dollars, makes billions of dollars a year. And even he's like, I have bigger aspirations. I've got things that I can't even afford to do. I have to raise outside capital to do. So if somebody's like that's saying that, then again, that's motivation. Just keep pushing, and there's never a limit. In fact, even yesterday, somebody said, if I had $10 million, I'd be fine. That's all I want. I would sell my business, chill, relax, and everything. Somebody said to me, what's your number? I said, what do you mean? I said, like his number. I was like, I don't know. Everybody seems to have that weird $10 million figure. I don't know where they get that number from.
Yeah.
Why it's so symbolic, but I keep hearing that. I've been hearing that for 15 years. I've heard different people from all age ranges say 10 million. And they said, well, what's your number? And do you have a number?
Well, I at one point I probably had the $10 million number. And I think, I think I know where it comes from. It comes from the idea that, at least for many, and definitely for myself at the time, it comes from the idea is most people feel comfortable enough to say conservatively that they can earn between 8 and 12% a year on their money. So call it 10 is the middle of that. So they think if I have $10 million that I can make $1 million a year passively in the market, and that's enough for me to live. And that's probably where it comes from.
That's probably what it is. And I said to me, there is no number. I was like, there's no limit. There's limitless, right? There's unlimited amount of things that I could continue to do. And that's kind of my mindset mentality is you just keep going. There's no limit. Don't limit yourself. So I just thought that was an interesting parallel and good timing, literally just happening last night.
And it's because you love the game. So, you're a young guy, you're hustling $6 an hour, you're making it happen. I want to just paint the picture a little bit at your life at the time. So you high school, you're still doing all kinds of business, you're working, you're paying for yourself. Was that because you felt the need to financially take care of yourself? Was it just you and your mom?
No, my mom remarried, but more so, yeah. So I had to pay my own way.
Independent.
Yeah.
And we spoke about right before the podcast here, just about maybe school or university or formal secondary education might not be around. You went to college?
Went to college. That's how I ended up down here in South Florida.
And how important was that for you? Why did you, for me, candidly, most people who listen to this know this. I pretty much a high school dropout, never really got to do the college experience. I do have a little bit of FOMO on the parties, but I'm really happy I don't have the debt. And I was able to start business at 18, so pros and cons to that. But I tell people I've been in this for over a decade and they're just like, but you're 30. And I'm like, it's been since I was 18. So, talk to me a little bit about that. How was that experience for you? Were you working? Were you building businesses during college?
So I think college is definitely time to mature for a lot of people, not necessary in 99% of the cases. And especially as I interview people who've come from top colleges and universities, and it's like a lot of times I'm running such circles around them. And I'm like, I'm just shocked. And I'm like, but Harvard wouldn't have accepted me at the time. And so I think that's interesting, but it's really just in your internal DNA of who you are and what you have. And I was on another podcast with a friend. He's got a really cool business. They do CLE credits for lawyers. So it's a requirement for lawyers to do continuing learning education credits. And they provide that platform for them to go. And we've done webinars for the privacy and compliance business. And he was like, tell me your background. In college, I was a car attendant or valet, at the time, because again, always kind of stepping up, right?
So you were running the valet?
Running the valet. So it started, I was working at a Four Seasons in Palm Beach, and mindset, I'm like, so one of the guys had been there for 20 years. And I was, again, motivation, this is all you're willing to do with your life is one guy, to be a valet at a hotel and make whatever it was, 50, 60 grand or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, and your whole life depends on other people being successful and then being generous to give you a few dollars when they come and they park their car at this hotel. And he's like, yes. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, I need something better, right? Wow. So even in the valet system, I worked my way up to better gigs and better jobs and paid my way through school. I graduated school with no debt, luckily.
Wow.
Because of that, I got in-state tuition down here. And that's one of the reasons that kept me in Florida was we have a great in-state tuition discount for Florida residents.
So where'd you go for college?
Florida Atlantic University up in
Amazing.
Boca Raton, and I guess my children will have the luxury of their college being prepaid for.
Right.
But maybe maybe if I had them hustling and having to pay for it, they'll have more grit. I don't know. I haven't figured or crossed that bridge yet. But for now, I'm just prepaying it.
You just mentioned the word grit, which is really important, and learning a lot about you and the conversations that we've had. And you're a member, and you're an amazing member. And the reason why I tell people that, and I don't know if you know this, but I always use you as an example to incoming members into the club, because they always say, how do I become an amazing member? And I say, well, just take a look at Rich, because you go all in and you support others and you show up fully. But what I've started to realize was that that really is a part of your human nature. It's beyond strategy. It's beyond networking. It's beyond being a part of community. It's like your human nature is to constantly be working and outworking your competition. Where have you, is that just something you've always had, or was there a point, whether it was in college or even in one of these jobs, where you're like, I can do better and I just need to work harder?
Yeah, hard work. I mean, anybody who says hard work is not part of the formula either got really lucky and, was Rupert and Winkle, went to sleep and woke up and ended up with a bunch of cash, right?
Yeah.
You got to outwork the competition, especially early on. And if you get complacent, or even Jensen Huang from NVIDIA says he hates the term moat. And in raising money for a company, all the VCs are, what's your moat? What's your moat? And I'm like, if I have a moat and I never want to hear that word again, I was like, then we will feel complacent and we will rest on our laurels and the competition will win. And if we're going to win, we are going to outwork them. We're going to do better, and we're going to accelerate in every metric possible. So there's never a doubt who the industry leader is in the long term. So grit's just such an important part of it. And then the networking just kind of comes natural. And that's almost become part of the business, right? As you're doing that, people think naturally when there's an issue, they think, oh, this is the person that can resolve it, right? So that's almost become part of the branding and almost like a marketing expense.
But you do that for others.
Do that for others, and don't ask anything, and you give, and what you put in and what you give, you get back. You know almost better than anybody.
Yeah. And I think it's a big thing that many entrepreneurs, but not even just entrepreneurs, everyone, the ability to recognize the power behind kind of relentless giving, whatever it is that you have. And I remember one time I think I might have been 18 or 19. I went to, Gary Vee came to Toronto.
Okay, yeah.
And he did a thing, and I snuck backstage and, had my moment. And within that experience, I remember him saying, figure out what you can give to others and then just keep doing that. And I was a young 19-year-old with really not much to give. I just started my business. What could I have given you? Maybe a pillow or something, because I was in the sleep business. What am I going to give you? I'm going to start handing out sheets to people. And what I realized is that we all have something to give, whether it's time, energy, support, connections, sometimes just space, checking in on people, whatever it is, we could give to others. And so more often than not, it's not our first instinct heading into relationship, heading into community, heading into whatever industry you're in. It's always, what can I take from this? Why would I do that? What am I going to get out of it? And that mindset is not only diminishing, but also it takes away from the energy of the world. If I'm just sucking energy out of people and taking, eventually there'll be nothing left to take, because no one will ever give. But for you, it just comes so naturally. Was it something that you learned in your journey, or was there someone in your life that you can think of that did that for you, where you're like, that now I'm going to inherit that?
Oh, put me on the spot. I don't think there was a specific moment or somebody who just naturally just said, oh, I'm just going to only give, and you'll learn from it. But I'm also a voracious reader. I recommend to everybody listening to this, the smartest people, most successful people in the world, they read books. There's no better investment than in your own education. And again, going back to like why school and the university system is very flawed, is like you can pick up these different biographies and read about entrepreneurs and people who have been successful in their craft and just learn right there. And for $20, you have a wealth of information of somebody who's done it, built it, and is sharing that information. So it's probably a combination of just reading books. I also think Ray Dalio, if you followed some of his principles and what he's given back, I always think just micro improvements every single day. I'm just looking to become that much better. And over time, it's building and compounding. And I'm thinking that same strategy with my current software business. Like every day we're making small wins. Those small wins are starting to compound. And in 5, 10, and 15 years from now, we're going to look up and say, wow, I could look what we've built because all those wins is compounded every single day, every single week, month, and year. And got us to hopefully we'll be a very well-known entity globally.
What's up, founder to founder fam? I just want to quickly pause here and thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of this journey. Starting a podcast is no joke, and the fact that hundreds of you listen every single week means the world to us. We want to continue to bring better and different and unique conversations to you to give you the most amount of value. Our only ask is that if you enjoy the pod, to please just share it with a friend, and most importantly, leave a comment, DM us, give us any sort of feedback. This entire production is for you, so if we can make it just 1% better, we will. We love you all. All right, let's get back into the pod.
What's one book that you think everyone should be reading?
We'll start with Principles then with Ray
Dalio.
Right, yeah, that's a great one. That really stood out for me. Also, 0 to 1, Peter Thiel's book, just changed the mindset, because when you think about it, Kobe Bryant came into the NBA and everybody said he's the next Michael Jordan, right? There was always that comparison, right? And then LeBron came and said, okay, he's the next one. And they're all saying if you talk to Kobe and if you talk to Michael back in the day about it, they were always just like, no, like, there would be no Kobe without Michael. I've learned, I've taken on, but I'm not the next one, right? We are totally different in that sense, outside of the fact that we have a relentless work ethic and practice, and we have a desire to win. 0 to 1 gave that same sort of comparison, because it was always like, what's going to be the next Google? And then Facebook popped up, but Facebook isn't the next Google. It's a totally different, right? One's social media, one's search. And then the 0 to 1 from Facebook, you could say, was Uber. And then from Uber, the next 0 to 1 is probably OpenAI and ChatGPT and what's happening. So they're all just totally different, but they're such game changers that they're so binary. And that mentality was really stuck out. And I haven't hit on a 0 to 1. I don't know if I'll hit on one ever, but I have a strategy and I have things that do work really well for me. And I think that's also, you find what's natural and what works for you. Like my hobby is working. So like it's natural, it's fun. And that's something that I don't know if you learned that in a book, but hopefully people.
It's always the golden nuggets, right? Like when you're reading, I love asking people about books they've read, because most books are anywhere between like 160 to 300, 400 pages. And then most people take away 1 to 3 max lessons that really stick with them amongst the whole shebang of a book. And now with AI and all these different types of ways to consume content and consume knowledge, like the world is set up in a way to potentially overfeed you knowledge. And it is interesting sometimes how people either stray away from it or go all in. And I agree with you. There's so much power when you go all in. I want to get into what you're working on now, but before that, I do want to continue to paint the picture, because this is not your first. What you do now with Captain Compliance is not your first thing, which is so important. You've had multiple exits. But I want to get into the first one, because the first one defines the entrepreneur, in my opinion. It really dictates lessons that we've learned, things you probably wish you would have done differently. Looking back, obviously, like Elon Musk says, it's so much easier to connect the dots backwards, right? So walk me through.
Jobs, actually.
Did he?
Yeah.
What a guy.
You can only connect the dots.
I think we're always doing that, right? We're always just regurgitating shit that other people told us,
which is fine, right? If it's a great line and it helps people understand things better, there's nothing wrong with it, right?
So you're leaving college now.
Yeah.
And like, walk me through this first business, how you get into it, what you saw, and how you knew that this was an opportunity you wanted to go into and really play full out.
Yeah, and I'll sidestep for a second back on books. So J. Willard Marriott, J.W. Marriott book. That was one of the biographies I remember reading as a kid. And I'm thinking this book is going to be all about the hotel business and things like that. And like a lot of things in life, the path is not linear and it's not as you expect. And the whole book was more about him in the LDS community, marrying his wife, moving out to Utah and building or in the end, moving out to Utah. But prior to doing that, he ran A&W stores. And then that eventually led to food services, which led to the hotel and hospitality business, which is only like a small footnote in the entire book. So
so interesting.
Yeah,
wow.
There's always a path, right? So similar with me, I actually worked at a boutique hedge fund right out of college, learned internet marketing skills there. The hedge fund was doing okay at a time when Lehman Brothers and financial companies in the world were just collapsing, and it wasn't a good time to get a job. And I met with my mentor who ran the Bank of Palm Beach at the time, and he said, you're still a college student, just get an internship. He's like, work for free. He's like, it's gonna suck, but he's like, just do it, because right now all these other people are out on the street and they need jobs and they're actually skilled. You have no skills, like outside of my grit that he saw. And he's like, I'm impressed with your grit. Like, worst case, like, we'll figure out a position with you at the bank. But he's like, make a list of all friends, family, alumni, contacts you have, just anything. And long story short, I ended up at a hedge fund that was like, I'm putting money into a startup. You can work on that in the morning and the evenings, and then if you pay your dues and you do a good job, I'll give you a job trading. And that's how I ended up learning internet marketing skills, which then I've compounded and built onto that to get to where I am today. So it came by kind of happenstance. It was completely unplanned, like you, right? You didn't know where you're going to be, and to be running this today, really, in my opinion, for you, stems from a clothing store that was started in Canada 100 years ago, right?
Literally.
Yeah. So kind of butterfly effect there. So I started with a childhood friend, like a sports analytics and sports data company. It was like the first thing that I had started.
What was it called?
It was called, at the time, Cooper's Pick. Is what it was called. So we had that, and that was my first foray of kind of like, all right, I'm building an internet business. And the startup I was working on was called GST, Garage Sales Tracker, and it had an aggregation of all the estate sales, yard sales, consignment shops, and things like that, like a blip of which Craigslist had. And that's where I learned a lot of the SEO and digital marketing skills. And then I parlayed that into the sports business. And then at a Thanksgiving dinner, a family member's cousin said, oh, like, I have this project you should really take a look at. And again, just most miscellaneous businesses, was like dumpster rentals. It's a huge business. Everybody's searching online, dumpster rental in XYZ city in the country.
Wow.
And I have a special skill where I can rank a website for pretty much any city in the entire country for a home services product. So I was like, okay. So we were supposed to have like another meeting on it, and he ended up like not showing. And I was like, all right. And I saw him like 3 months later. I'm like, oh, I built that business, by the way. And he's like, what? I was like, yeah. I was like, you told me about it. We were supposed to have a meeting. You didn't show. So I just built it. And I was like, yeah, we're actually doing it. And he's like, can you give my brother a job? So literally I ended up hiring that guy's brother, and we built the dumpster rental business.
How old were you?
I was 24 at the time,
24, dumpster rental business.
Yeah, dumpster rental, random business, right?
Wow.
So we have the dumpster rental business. We were getting calls. I mean, it was just blowing, and I was like, who would have thought, right? Such a mislane. But I'm not a dumpster rental guy. But Wayne Huizinga, who was like the godfather of South Florida, he had waste management business. So I knew it could be a really big, lucrative business. So built that up a fairly short period of time. About a year later, sold that. Because I had a reputation management company, and that was like my main focus. So I had the dumpster rental business, had that flowing, had the guy's brother and some other people taking calls and working on it. We were ranking in cities all across the country, and then people were calling all day, hey, I need a 10-foot dumpster rental in Phoenix, Arizona. I have a 20-yard waste bin.
So were you selling the leads to the actual local dumpster pick, like
So
company?
we would find all the local dumpster rental companies, and then we would book the reservation, take payment, and then we went upstream. And then we went upstream. Yeah.
Yes.
So it was a little bit of like dumpster rental arbitrage,
Yeah.
right?
Because most of these dumpster rental companies, I mean, honestly, I would go as far as saying even today, they're not internet marketing people. They're in the ground every day. They're figuring out their business. For them, marketing is probably still the yellow pages for the most part. And for you to come in and be like, hey, I got 100 people asking for a dumpster. You want to service them? It's like, wow, this guy's a genius. I don't know how you do it, but keep it coming.
You may have to educate the audience what the yellow pages are too, by the way.
The old book, alphabetically organized, that had how I'd find my friend's house number to see if they wanted to play basketball. Yeah.
And actually in the early days of my reputation repair business, which we'll get to in a minute, was people saying very recently, and even then, that they were still advertising yellow pages, and they realized that they needed to come online, and this was the future. Kind of like today, people are like, I know AI is the future. We've been running Google ads or whatever, but at the time, it was all yellow pages to the internet, and Google was the internet.
So tell me how that business ended and when you went into your next venture.
Yeah. So simultaneously, I had multiple things going at the same time. So still had the sports business in the background. Dumpster rentals are starting to flow, but I can only dedicate so much time to it. Put that up for sale through Biz Buy Sell. Find a buyer fairly quickly. And it's funny, the guy sat down, we're negotiating. He's like, I don't want a big long negotiation. Let me just figure out a number. Write you a check, and we'll give us a month of training, and then we'll take over, and we won't make it super difficult. He's like, or you can go through a really and I'm like, because he knew I had other things going, right? Yeah. So that worked. Was able to exit that, and then
at 25, 26,
25, 26.
Wow,
yeah.
First exit at 25.
Yeah, first exit. Got some guys. I remember. My friend wanted something, or we went to dinner. He's like, you had an exit today. You can pay.
I'll take all the desserts today. Actually, they all look really interesting. I'll have a bite of each on him. That's awesome.
Yeah. So then I have the story actually of the business. The reputation repair one was one where I had a friend, met him actually at a Shabbat dinner randomly. And he was working on his own startup. He saw me doing the startup for the estate sales and things like that. Was working. We were driving a lot of traffic, and he says, we should start something. I'm like, I'm crazy busy. I got a job in the morning. I work on this, and I ended up posting an ad on Craigslist with a diagram of like SEO stuff. And about 2 months later, I'm getting all these calls. I'm at work, and I was working. I ended up getting a job at the hedge fund to just little side quest. Yeah, and worked there temporarily for about a year and a half, 2 years, and was essentially an unsuccessful trader. But luckily I had these other skills I was building, and realized I wasn't meant to work on Wall Street. I wasn't meant to be a trader, wasn't meant to be in the hedge fund world, was better meant and suited as an entrepreneur. So he's calling me and saying, hey, we got our first client. And I'm like, what? I was like, This is 2 months later. And he's like, but I have no idea what to do. So I need your help.
Wow.
So I ended up showing the client the other work that I've been doing on the side, showed that I, can drive traffic. I know how to build sites and things like that. And we got our first client. It was like a debt settlement business here in South Florida. And then we posted another Craigslist ad, got another client. And then we said, all right, instead of just being an SEO business, we looked at a few options. And we said, one, at the time, Facebook, you could sell and buy wishes and likes or something.
Yeah.
So that was one idea, which had we chosen that, I think Facebook shut it down a year later. So luckily we didn't choose that. And we end up saying, hey, there's a company called Reputation Defender. We can become Profile Defender. So similar enough name. People will think we're a really big company, even though there's only, 2 of us. And that's kind of how the business got started. It started with $500 and just grit, SEO, and, making a lot of content and ranking it. And we started driving leads, and we called a big MLM company that was our, that I knew had issues online that we could fix. And the business's concept was, if you have bad results online, we make good content. We push down the negative in replacing it with good and positive content. And there's a big MLM company that we just targeted. We called them a bunch, and we ended up getting them as a client initially $15K a month to $30K a month. So we started onboarding our first reputation client in March of 2011. By December, we were at $90,000 a month. So I was like,
Wow.
wow. And mind you, I was making almost, very little money prior to that. So
Wow.
it started to happen pretty fast.
So just for those who are listening, first of all, this is fascinating. When we talk about reputation management, we're talking about customers, they do their research, they go online and they want to learn about your company. So it was more of reputation management online and using tools and basically a strategy that interacts with the algorithm to drown out the bad and populate with good. And is that something that's still very viable and that like works today? Or is it more difficult now, in your opinion, with social media to really like drown out the bad because it's a constantly resurfacing and very easy to find?
So I think with seeing how the Facebook idea was with selling wishes and buying wishes, how that was killed like within a year from like concept of should we do this to not existing, it was always like, what's going to happen in this business? Will this business be around? And the concept and the idea was that there will always be something. If it's not Google search results, it'll be social media results. If it's not social media results, it'll be TikTok. Well, today it's, AI results and, hey, how do we fix XYZ AI results that are here?
Wow.
So like anything, right? It's just continuous evolvement. The business I sold, so I'm not involved in, in any respects, but I have friends that
You sold out of this business?
I sold out of this business in 2023. So
okay, recently.
Yeah,
nice. Yeah. Who'd you sell it out
to? Private equity company, Seidler Equity Partners. They own the San Diego Padres, LA Fitness, Rawlings Baseball, like big, but it was, I think, a gift for their portfolio and their kids to run it. And it's still running. I'm sure it's doing great today. I built a great system and set up in the methods to which resolve these issues and kind of the ICP, the target client profiles. So
at this point, you sold 2 businesses. When it comes to selling businesses, there's a lot of fallacies out there in terms of what the business needs to look like and feel like when it is ready for acquisition. You mentioned the word systems and how you built it in a way where people can hand it off. Like your first business, it's like, hey, give us 1 month and give it to us. We'll take it from here. Second business, same thing, hand it off to maybe people within the family. A lot of people do that now. They buy businesses and say, here, take something that's already kind of proven and work on it. How important, in your opinion, is systems when it comes to not only building a company, but preparing it for an eventual sale?
Team is more important, in my opinion, than even systems. Because if you have the right operators and the right people in place, they can continue on. And I've seen it in both positive and negative. I brought in a CEO to essentially replace me so I could eventually exit and do something more scalable. Remember, I mentioned earlier, I'm always wanting to do something bigger and better.
Right.
And I'm like, all right, I'm kind of tapped out here. And like, even if I grew the revenue of the reputation business another 7x, the business wouldn't have been any more profitable. And even seeing another business that was trying to exit right around the time we did, they were, again, about 4 times more in revenue, but less profit. And it was a much riskier buy. And they ended up not selling for anywhere even near as high as we did. And so having a really solid team in place was a big part of the sale process for me. So in going back to even 2017, I entertained the idea of potentially selling, and they said, look, the whole business is you. If you get hit by a car, like the business is gone. Right. So I was like, all right. And I didn't have any documents processes in place. Wow. A lot of it was just in my head. So I started to document and put things together. I brought in a partner out in Utah who was fantastic. And he really helped build a small little nimble team out there. And then we built upon that, and we built from 2017 to pretty much the end of 2022, and then prepared and got to an exit in 23. So
that's incredible. Yeah. Now you're 2 exits in, and you're like, all right, I'm going to do what I always do and move on to something bigger and better. And now you want to set yourself up to target a multi-billion-dollar market around compliance and safety. And we'll get into the nitty-gritty of it, because I think a lot of business owners don't fully grasp what's actually happening, what the actual risks are. And, candidly myself, if it weren't for the ability for pixels to inherently absorb like a big giant magnet, a tremendous amount of data.
Yes.
I don't even know if I would be sitting in this chair today, because I built a sleep business that, again, found my arbitrage, went into a space of dumpster rentals, which were just sleep companies that have been around for 90 years. And I figured out that I could build a brand and market in ways that they still haven't discovered. They would spend a full year working on a television ad that sure got the eyeballs, but not the same type of intent and have the same amount of targeting and tracking. A lot of wasted dollars on that. They call it brand building, just wasted dollars. Like a billboard in the middle of nowhere. It's like, but there's 1,000 cars that pass every day. It's like, yeah, so what? I can't retarget that. I don't know if they're watching it. Maybe they don't remember. It's not clickable, etc. So, back in 2016, 17, 18, the idea of like a Facebook pixel being on your site and being able to track essentially people's every digital movement to the point where I still miss these days. Like between me and you, like forget the as a consumer, I was complaining the other day, actually. I was complaining to a friend. I said, it's pretty much Black Friday now. It's all launched.
Yep.
I go to him, I go, what do I buy? Like, I want to buy something. And he's like, well, you can like all the basic stuff. And I was like, I miss the days when my phone knew what I wanted before I knew what I wanted. Because I get no good ads. My ads are so irrelevant to me. I'm just like, it's like sending me like other like entrepreneur meetup things. And I was like, I know you know what I do, but that's not what I need. I like sell me like my pool has a thing right now. I'm like, sell me some pool stuff, but it doesn't know that because it's not reading my texts or listening to my phone. It just doesn't have the same data as it used to. But as a marketer, I figured out that when everyone else was using the yellow pages for ads, that I can again target people who are suffering from insomnia and anxiety. Why? Because they would Google, I can't sleep at 2 a.m. What helps me sleep? And then the pixels would share information between each other to the point where it would serve my ad that literally said, can't sleep, try this for 90 days or your money back. And I always sell, millions and millions and millions of dollars. So for me, very appreciative for that time in the market. But times have changed. So walk me through what you noticed, because what I just described is what has been. Times have changed and data and privacy are becoming more and more insensitive. I want you to just walk people through the opportunity that you saw, how big of an issue it is, and where you see it going as it continues. Unfortunately for the marketer, it continues to become more and more difficult to quote unquote take information from people without their consent for the most part.
Yeah, bingo. Exactly what you just said was the catalyst and the reason for thinking this is a great opportunity, because being on the one side, as a marketer, it's always a cat and mouse game. We're always trying to figure out, right, how do I out in Google, how do I rank this? How do I run the most efficient ads in Facebook, right? How do I keep retargeting? And it's difficult, right? And what works today doesn't work tomorrow, and it's continuously evolving and changing. Yes. As an ex-agency owner, that was a constant, right? Yeah. So you're always trying to find new ways, and I would come up with some creative ways, some legal, some illegal. Then it was like, I was like, I don't like this. Like, I want to find ways that something that's scalable and something that's compliant. Cambridge Analytica happens, right? You have Brexit, you have all these new regulations, and Facebook seen as the evildoer, where everybody loved Facebook from 2010 to 2016, if you remember. And they're bringing the community together. This is great. We're giving them all these data points. They know us. They connect us. This is great. Then all of a sudden, a complete 180. Facebook is evil. Chase them out of town. Right. The picket fence, the pickets and everything started. Yep. So it was a big fundamental change on how people saw data. And that's where a lot of the catalysts for GDPR in Europe, which is the privacy regulation there, started to come about. And then from there, California started on one in 2018. And for me, I've been looking at other opportunities, ideas. I mean, I've looked at everything from like HR charts of how to organize your HR stack. I had a small software business in between this that I built up and sold just for, generate some extra cash. I looked at a handful of different things, but ultimately it was the fact that we did data privacy removal. So if we Googled your name plus Toronto, Canada, or Miami, Florida, and we're like, hey, here's your home address, we can remove this online for you. We call that data privacy removal. I had saw that a company in the data privacy software space had raised money at a $5.1 billion valuation.
Wow.
And I was like, I do data privacy stuff. What is this company doing that's worth 5.1 billion? Like even that 0.1 is more than like, you know. So, and that's when I went down the rabbit hole and saw like, this is an opportunity where it's no more the cat and mouse. Like you're on the other side where you're just helping everybody else who's dealing with the cat and mouse game now. And that's what's scalable. And that was like kind of the light bulb moment. And Tim Cook says, like, you wouldn't like it if you had your phone out and somebody was peering over your shoulder and watching every single text message and everything you're writing and every site you're going to, what pictures you're looking at. But he's like, it's no different on the internet when you think about it. When you have your iPhone out and you're scrolling on Instagram, like they know every picture you're looking at, they know what you're liking, they know the comments you're making, and they're serving up ads, based on that, unless you've opted out and rejected all the cookies. So that's kind of what we're dealing with. And consumers are realizing that, they have privacy rights. We're only seeing in our data about 1.5% of users are opting out of cookies and tracking.
Wow.
So it's not as high as I would have thought. And luckily, so it doesn't affect most marketers and a lot of their retargeting, and it's becoming required. And if companies don't have sort of privacy tools like what we built, then they're at risk of regulation. So we mentioned Europe was the original, California was the first in the US. Now today there's 20 states with privacy laws. If we were talking again in 5 years, there's probably 45 to 50 states, and then potentially a federal regulation. And then there's all these nuances of things of what you can and can't do with consumer data. And that's the future. And that's why I'm so bullish, and I'm trying to be all in and start, divesting from other businesses, things I've had that have been nice wins and singles and doubles, to focus on this, which is like what I believe a true home run business that could be generational sort of wealth building from this.
Yeah. I think the most interesting part of this is, as data becomes more and more of an issue, I think a lot about what it means to a business. And for a business owner, a lot of times, especially when we're, small to medium size, anywhere between, maybe $10 to $50 million, $10 to $100 million a year, what happens is like the last thing you want to do is think about a thing on your site or something that potentially ruins or slows down the consumer experience, because at that level, a 1 or 2% shift in your conversion rate, even, or 1 or 2% increase in your bounce rate, which is essentially people jumping on and jumping off of your site, can actually be the difference between $100,000 to $300,000 a year. So people we shy away from that, because what we prefer to do is to just turn a blind eye. What I've seen more and more and more is the squeaky wheels are starting to become a little bit louder. And I remember, I'll never forget this, when the law passed in California, it also covered essentially unsolicited texting. And that was a big campaign for us, around Black Friday, whatever. We would, find lookalikes. We would get their numbers, and we would send them a text. We would say, hey, like, if you're looking for new bedding, we've got this incredible cooling sheets, 30% off, whatever. And it would do really well. People are like, wow, I don't know how you got my number or who this is, but like, I actually do need sheets right now. I was just telling my wife yesterday, like, we need to get some new sheets, and we're buying. And they would buy. And I will never forget the one email I got from what happened to be a guy that we texted, who's also a compliance lawyer, was like, this is going to cost you tens of millions of dollars, so let's just settle right now. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, because this was just a text for sheets, just delete it. And he was like, no. And it was a tough lesson that we thankfully got out of. But a lot of small to medium sized businesses don't see this, because we don't have security and compliance teams, because why would we? And what do you think young businesses today, as they start to scale, the risk that they potentially don't see from simply not having a yes, I'm in, no, I'm out button on their website to be in line to potentially not get sued, because it's easier now to sue people than ever before.
And there's actually somebody who's out of California who's doing these suits as what's called a pro se individually, not even going to a law firm. He's just sending out thousands of requests a month saying you're in violation of my privacy and everything.
Wow.
And he's probably making 6 figures from, and it's crazy because people are like, well, what do we do? And if they don't do anything, they ignore it, then eventually they file, and then it, they have to hire an attorney, and it can get expensive. So, and I think some of these people know that there's as low as a few $1,000s to ones that are Aspendental just settled a case for 18.7 million. So
wow.
There's a few different examples I'll use. One is the T app, growing startup, was getting off the ground. They got breached, and then they had very sensitive data. They didn't even have good security controls in place. Then they got breached again. I don't even know if the app's still around, but like that's a perfect example of some of these companies. They're gaining momentum. You don't take security and privacy and compliance serious, and it completely destroys and puts a business under. So that's a big risk that a lot of people just don't even see. It's not even in the peripheral. We have somebody we spoke with. They knew they needed to do it. They dealt with very sensitive telehealth information.
Oh.
They got hit with a $5 million class action lawsuit, and they're like, we're going to end up going out of business now. And I'm like, I tried for, a few $100s a month. We could have protected and avoided this and saved you $5 million. So whenever somebody asks, I'm like, here's a case we could save this person, could have saved them $5 million. Was on with a series of med spas the other day when I saw you in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
They had just settled a case for $85,000, and they were like, it sucks, and we actually have to make payments to the law firm to pay this off. We're not even able to, because we're trying to grow, and now this is hindering our growth. And I was like, what could I have said to you? Because somebody connected us and said, you guys should talk. And then we didn't talk. And then somebody met one of the founders at a conference, and they said, hey, I'm dealing with this issue. Does anybody know who can help? And they're like, I got a guy. Ends up being they already knew me. They didn't pull the trigger yet. And I said, what could I have said? So you're right, for a small cost, and general counsels will say it best. Like, I'd rather save $1 million than having to pay out $1 million. So
wow.
Yeah.
It's such an interesting thing. And it's always is often underlooked and just like, or overlooked, really. People don't even look at these things until it comes and it hits you. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people out there that really just make money like this. We actually have one member, and I was asking him what his growth strategy for the year was. And he said, innovation through litigation.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, fair enough. Listen, the system, the system is built for this, right? That's people hold each other accountable. People use the system to their advantage. We all do so in our own way. And unfortunately, probably well over 80% of people are out of compliance, and it poses a real risk. I want to just quickly pivot to something I find really interesting about you, because what happens when you build so many companies, you get really good at hiring and firing. Because you've had hundreds of people come in and out of your businesses. You've learned so many countless lessons. A lot of people that are listening to this are building 5, 10, 50, $100 million businesses. Every single one of us thinks we're great at hiring, but knows we have a lot of work to do. I've remember, something you said around your ability to go deeper on your interviews, how you hold people accountable, how people need to match your level of intensity. Talk me through your process for hiring, how you select people, because just like paint the picture for people, you've built multiple businesses. You've brought in operators for all of these businesses at certain points, to the point where you're able to sell them as a beautiful turnkey, pretty much operation. And you're constantly seeking the right people to help your companies grow. What's your mindset? What's your process when it comes to, first of all, finding these people, selling them on the vision, giving them the system and the tools, and also recognizing who's probably not the right fit for you?
Yeah. So definitely hire slow and fire fast.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been times where I didn't fire fast, and it was in my gut that I should have, and every single time I've regretted it. So now there's new rules all the time that so it's always a constant iteration and change. But a lot of times it's grit and work ethic, right? I work really hard. I believe in hard work. I believe in working on the weekends. Somebody says, "Oh, that's I don't want to work on the weekends." That's fine. You're just not going to be a good fit for here,
Right.
and that's okay. Look, I'm sure there's some company out there, probably lots of companies that'll be a good fit, but not in the startup world, right? We have to outwork. We just have to do better. So trying to understand culturally if somebody's a fit is important. On the engineering side, I found it really helpful to make coding challenges, and you can weed people out pretty fast. So two of our engineers scored, one scored 99%, the other scored 96% on our coding challenge that we put together. I had people that maybe in an interview they sounded good, and then you gave them the coding challenge, and then they scored in the 60s or 70s, and you're like, okay, they're not a good fit for this. So coding challenges are good for engineering. Culturally, and finding people that like to win is also important. So I like to ask, what is something you've won at? And if they have something that is a good story or something that they worked hard at, they won, and they've accomplished, is always a good sign. Somebody said, I've never won at anything. It's like, all right, you don't have the mentality to beat the competition. So important. What's something you've won at?
Oh my God. A lot of things. I've won in hockey. I've won many championships. I've won in business. I would say that I've in my space, when we were like the main weighted blanket company, but we had 70,000 active competitors. And we were the only one to have a successful acquisition. In fact, the other day I got an email from our largest competitor at the time, who during our acquisition, our acquirer was actually doing the dance with both of us. And I got a call the other day from someone who asked me if I just wanted to buy the name of that competitor for like cents, really just take the name and do something with it for free, essentially. Yeah. And I couldn't believe it. I had to like go for a walk after, because I was like, wow, I remember like, it must have been devastating to be them in that position now, to go from, potentially a $50-60 million exit to, mid six figure, potentially might not even be in cash. Who knows? Like pretty much zero. So it feels good to win that battle.
That's a nice win. Yeah.
And I know the Hush is doing great now, actually better than ever, which is always good to hear after an acquisition. Like, I hope they don't kill it, but they did a great job, really. So yeah, I think it's important to just have that competitive spirit. I'm from Canada. So in Canada, we compete in hockey. I played hockey for 20 years. It's a big deal. But the Canadian spirit is not as ferocious and as mean and as relentless and unforgiving as the American spirit. And I love that. It's one of the reasons I moved here. I've never felt the energy like when I moved to Miami or when I moved to America. It is really unforgiving here. And that's why the American dream exists, because you can't like participation trophies in the real world. In America, they just don't work, because not that it is a zero-sum game, but in most niche industries, there will only be maybe a couple winners, and there's going to be tens of thousands of competitors. Yep. And in any space, in your space, my space, in every space, we're always competing for attention. We're competing for the share of wallet. We're competing against the market. We're competing against whatever Donald tweets today that can affect our business. Like so anything can affect us. At the end of the day, it's just war every single day. So I really love that question. Like, what have you won at? Because I think if people don't recognize that you do need to win, and you will lose sometimes, but you need to expect to win, you will probably come out hurting in this environment. At least there's probably other countries and other systems and other economic practices. So if you go to Canada, it's a very socialistic view. Everyone wins a little, but no one wins a lot. That would better be suited for you.
Yeah. The late Sam Zell, also the book "Am I Being Too Subtle" is a great book. I recommend to read. That's one of my all-time favorites. But he says if you're going into an industry, you strive to be at least top two. He's like, anything besides that, like, you don't necessarily need to be number one because you have a target on your back when you are number one. And he's like, but as long as you're top two, do it to be in the winner circle, be up there.
Yeah, you have to be. Otherwise, it's just not worth your time. We have a fun question that we always ask at the end of the pod. And in this case, because we've been able just to get so into nitty gritty, like for people who are listening to this, like they just got a avalanche of information that they probably have to listen to this pod like twice. And I think that's so powerful. But a big thing is, you've come a long way in your career and you have a lot to go. But at this point in your career, you've learned a lot. There is lessons that you've taken with you. You've gotten better. You've made mistakes. We all have. But one of my favorite questions to ask, typically at the end of this podcast, is if we were able to bring the young Chart, okay, here,
the DeLorean out,
and you can choose the age. So a lot of people. So we're gonna bring the younger version of yourself here to the front of the table, and you were able to share one piece of advice, one message with the younger version of yourself. What age are you bringing here? So like some people say, I'm bringing 7-year-old, 20-year-old, whatever. How old is the younger version of yourself sitting here with us? And what is one message or one piece of advice that you would give to your younger self?
Oof, yeah. Click allow cookies. My aunt the other day said, I don't support a site. I won't shop there if they don't give me the option to opt out. When I was explaining what I do, she goes, I actually don't support it. And I'm like, all right, it's good to know, like it is a trust builder in instances, and that is one thing we promote. But younger me, probably in 15, 16-year-old self, and say, let's develop a skill, figure out a skill set that is scalable. I think of human capital, or just when I was younger, right? Whether it was as the valet or the busboy at the restaurant and punching out calling cards, right? I'm working something that's just labor and only able to make whatever amount of time I can put in for that day, right? Whereas when I started to learn actual skill sets, I learned something that could be scalable, something that could be bigger than myself. And I would have taught myself how to do programming and online marketing at that time, and really had I started sooner, I'd be so much further along. So I think of like Elon Musk, for example, right? He started with Zip2, like a Yellow Pages style business, and because he had an exit from that, then he was able to go in and start what eventually became PayPal, and then from that big exit was eventually able to start SpaceX and was brought in very early stage for Tesla. And then now obviously he's expanded exponentially on that. I feel like I just had I don't even know if I would call it my Zip2 exit, or like maybe this is my PayPal that I'm working on now. And maybe this becomes the biggest thing, that I could possibly work on, or maybe eventually I find something that could be the next stepping stone and something even bigger than this. But I would be that much further ahead had I started, instead of starting in my mid 20s, if I had started in my, 15, 16, and instead of going out to, worthless parties and, the kids in Baltimore and it's different today because you have much more connectivity in the internet, but to find other people in town, there was really one other like internet kid that I grew up with who was big in computers. He's also in the startup world. I hope he's doing well. But that was like it in our community, and everybody else, even today, I think is blue collar work for the most part, maybe a couple doctors and lawyers. But had I found a skill and I focused back then, I'd be much further along. Today, kids have obviously communities all over, right? Founders is our adult version of what the kids now can have on Reddit, or they can have on Discord channels, and you connect with people with similar interests. Back when I was young, like that didn't really exist. There was some AOL chat rooms, but mostly it was very shady people.
Yeah, it was super weird.
It wasn't safe.
Or like RuneScape, or I don't know what we used to play, just some weird stuff.
Yeah, so developing a skill from a young age, and I think in my case, I was suited for programming and for digital marketing skills back then. So that's what I'd sit myself down. And then I would say, just buy a bunch of Bitcoin in 2009 and just promise don't sell it till 2025. And then if you want to buy on some dips, do that. But you'll have enough.
I just bought some today, actually, this morning.
There we go.
Yeah, for sure. We always buy, we don't sell.
Yeah.
And we'll wait. Well, dude.
I got a friend who started the first Bitcoin exchange, and he owned Bitcoin.com. And in 2011, he sold all his Bitcoin at $20.
Oh my God.
And
I hope he's okay.
It's rough sometimes. And
Yeah.
actually, he had a nation state. He held on to some, and he had a nation state attack, which he believes was from Russia, actually, and was hijacked about $100 million in Bitcoin. And this was in like 2015 or 2016.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah,
thank God for the ETFs. That's why honestly, I have a bunch of wallets, but I've been just converting it all into the ETFs.
Yeah.
It's just so much better.
Yeah.
Well, dude, thank you so much. Thank you for playing all out. Thank you for showing up.
Yeah.
Thank you for being a great member and just for being a value add to the entrepreneurship community. It goes a long way. We use the product. We know it's a great product.
Thank you.
But I think, all business owners should definitely think about how compliance is. And for the young people who are listening to this, the message is loud and clear. Learn from others. Surround yourself with like-minded individuals. Go deeper into your skill sets. Don't go wider when you're younger. Go deeper. And that way you'll have the competitive advantage to build, because the journey is long and it never ends. For those people who want 10 million, by the time you get it, 10 million might be 1 million, if they keep printing the way they're printing. So at the end of the day, thank you, man. Thank you for coming. Thank you for showing up fully. I think everyone listening to this is going to get a ton of value.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Founder to Founder podcast. And I have one favor, just one favor to ask. It's the only favor I'll ever ask from you. And if you liked what you listened to please like, subscribe, and please just leave a comment. Let us know what you think, how we can make it better. We are all in on delivering value to you. And all we ask in return is that you hit that subscribe. It goes a long way for what we're trying to build here. And as always, we post an episode every single Wednesday. So stay tuned, and thank you for tuning in.